councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
In Dallas, Texas, 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade in downtown Dallas. The first reports say that President Kennedy has been seriously wounded by this shooting.
It is a big idea, a new world order.
It was almost as if it were a planned implosion. It just pancaked.
Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists.
But I also believe that a lot of gun owners would agree that AK-47s belong in the hands of soldiers, not in the hands of criminals.
Guns will be taken. No one will be able to be off. We have to take all of them.
For many of the police and guard troops, it is an uncomfortable job to do this in an American city.
Global governance at last. Is it one world? The central bankers in charge. But aren't we all just living and dying for what the central banks do?
As for me, give me liberty or give me death!
The answer to 1984 is 1776.
Welcome to the InfoWars Nightly News. It is Wednesday, October 9th, 2013, and I'm Leanne McAdoo. Here's what's coming up tonight.
Tonight.
We were told if you have a low credit score, it could affect what you pay for premiums.
Obamacare, making insurance affordable by raising premiums. And get ready for mandatory walking helmets. That's next on the InfoWars Nightly News.
We're going to change your diaper. It's sexy. And in every ancient culture, women got out of hand. They said, you know what? It's really sexy if you bind your feet up where you can't walk. Just sit there and shut up. They're like, oh, it's trendy.
What you haven't seen before, I think, from the vantage point of a lot of world leaders, is the notion that one party in Congress might blow the whole thing up if they don't get their way. You have some ideological extremist who has a big bankroll, and they can entirely skew our politics. And there are a whole bunch of members of Congress right now who privately will tell you, I know our positions are unreasonable, but we're scared that if we don't go along with the Tea Party agenda or some particularly extremist agenda, that we'll be challenged from the right. You don't pay a ransom, you don't provide concessions for Congress doing its job and America paying its bills.
What? Wasn't Obama the one who was just negotiating with militant extremists in Syria earlier this year, and they were demanding that the U.S. send them weapons, and then Obama was trying to negotiate with Congress to get them to send arms to these militant extremists? But these so-called political extremists, no, he doesn't want to negotiate with them. He's rejected every resolution that the Republicans have sent his way. He refuses to go to the table, but yet he insists that it's the Republicans who are being unreasonable. He's like a mafia boss, and he just wants what he wants. And in order to get it, he sends his goons out to break proverbial legs and to make sure that you feel the pain of defying the great Lord Obama. And his administration is being extremely petty and selective with enforcing the shutdown. They're arresting people at the Grand Canyon, throwing the elderly out of their homes, shutting down all the national parks. They won't let Catholic priests on military bases do the Catholic sacraments like Mass and baptisms, or they could get arrested. They're arresting veterans who visit their memorial. But of course, they've allowed an immigration rally to take place on the closed National Mall. That goes on and on. He is the terrorist, and he wants you to feel the pain.
Welcome to Tyranny Watch. I'm Gigi Arnetta. Well, our government just can't help itself. Now it's keeping liquor from selling. In Kentucky, the partial government shutdown is causing problems for owners of a distillery. John Ingram and Denise Story are co-owners of Jefferson Street Whiskey Company, They have all the required permits and licenses so they can legally start distilling, but they can't sell their products because the government has not yet approved the distillery's labels. And in Pittsburgh, Maggie's Farm rum will be ready to drink, but you can't have any because labeling has to be approved by the Alcohol and Tobacco and Tax and Trade Bureau. So no new whiskey or rum for you, America, or oceanfront views, because Old Smoky doesn't want you to be able to see the beautiful American views while there's a government shutdown. San Francisco's Cliff House was forced to close last Thursday as part of the government shutdown because all concessions in national parks are required to be closed. So in response to the shutdown, the Cliff House owners opened anyway on Monday, October 7th, only to be closed again. The last statement reads, while the local Park Service officials have been sympathetic and helpful in relaying the Cliff House's concerns to Park Service headquarters in Washington, D.C., the decisions are driven by D.C., which has instructed that the facility must close. Way to go, Smokey, destroying businesses in the United States. USA, USA. And let me ask you, if a person goes to a park, do you actually chase them all the way home, or do you follow them in your SUV and hunt them down that way? In Pennsylvania, a man who went jogging in a National Historic Park was slapped with a $100 fine because the area was closed due to the shutdown. Really? And like that's not enough, the National Park Services went and removed handles off of water fountains. In what looks to be a really spiteful maneuver, the NPS even removed handles from water spigots along the Chesapeake and Ohio Canal, where bikers and joggers exercise, as well as along the Great Allegheny Passage, just to ensure people don't get any water from them. And you can fight the tyranny by signing up for prisonplanet.tv. You can give your username and password up to 10 people. Let's have a real budget cut. Let's start with the National Park Services. So long, Smokey. I am Gigi Arnetta with Tyranny Watch on the InfoWars Nightly News.
Obama wants you to feel the pain, but you should feel the tyranny. America, feel the oppression. Well, if you were one of those elusive people who just so happened to be able to sign up for Obamacare via the healthcare.gov website, be sure to read the fine print. Obamacare Marketplace. Personal data can be used for law enforcement and audit activities. The user agreement states, any information that you provide to us in your application will be used only to carry out the functions of Maryland Health Connection. The only exception to this policy is that we may share information provided in your application with the appropriate authorities for law enforcement and audit activities. The site does not specify if appropriate authorities refers only to state authorities or if it could include the federal government as well. Neither is there any detail on what type of law enforcement and or audit activities would justify the release of the personal information or who exactly is authorized to make such a determination. So just by signing up, your information is being shared with the IRS. But why should that concern you?
One of the concerns is actually about credit scores. People are being asked to show their credit score when signing up.
That's right, Lisa. It is asking you to show your credit score. It is required. And we were told if you have a low credit score, it could affect what you pay for premiums.
So a day later, the woman who told reporters that said she made a mistake. It's not true that you're required to provide your credit score. So who is this Ann Packham that made that statement? She's the lead navigator in Florida. That's right, the person licensed by the state to explain the Affordable Care Act to you and me is confused, and the site itself is still bogged down with glitches, so no one knows what's actually there. None of us can find out how much our deductible is going to be and how high are the premiums we're going to be paying. And that is the plan. I don't think the marketplace is going to be open until after the government shutdown ends. That way Obama can get what he wants, and then the reality of how much this Affordable Care Act is actually going to cost you and me is going to be abundantly clear. And it's going to be a lot more than what we expect, and we're all going to be very, very angry about it, but it'll be too late. So the Republicans and Democrats are both playing to their bases right now during this whole shutdown. But both sides know that Obamacare must pass in order to please their corporate masters. Just look at how high those stock prices are for the insurance companies. They have absolutely soared. So neither the Republicans or the Democrats are going to allow those stocks to crash because they are bought and paid for by the insurance companies who wrote the Affordable Care Act. And who owns the biggest insurance company out there? The Federal Reserve. They bought AIG in 2008 with our bailout money. And they're the ones that helped draft the Affordable Care Act. So this is not about helping the poor. This is about transferring the wealth, continuing to transfer the wealth to the 1% of the 1%. And those terrorist Tea Partiers, they're probably the only ones who aren't bought and paid for because they're just still pretty new to this two-party system. And that could be why they still have yet to sell out entirely to Wall Street. So we'll have to see. Tosh Plumlee blew the lid off the Benghazi scandal a couple of weeks ago when he revealed some shocking information on the Alex Jones show. Well, he's returned today with some very intense questions he has for the Obama administration that most journalists are too afraid to ask.
I'd rather see the American people ask these questions.
Right. In fact, everybody should go to town halls and ask these questions so they can get them at your Facebook. They're in our article, former CIA whistleblower targeted by government.
Why don't they ask them? Why don't they answer? Why don't they answer and give Miss Smith back? Let's focus back to what started me opening that Facebook page. Let's start back to why I come on your program. Let's go back to what happened when I contacted Jim Mars, who helped me start all this. Let's refocus about, and these questions are very important. Mrs. Smith should be asking these questions. The American people should be asking these
Exactly. You've already done a lot of work. You've done it over and over again, and people need to get up off their hind ends and do it. So get into your last points.
Well, they talk about, everybody talks about and blasts their lips around the country, but nobody wants to go out on point and attack. When I say attack, I don't mean rabble rouse and talk a bunch of bullshit out of your lips and your butt and all that kind of stuff. I'm talking about facts. Is the United States little-known direct commercial sales program, also known as the Blue Lantern Report, being used as a cutout to secretly aid both sides of a Middle Eastern civil war? Yes or no, Mr. President, Mr. Senate, Mr. Whoever just heard this? Answer, yes or no. We want it on record. If you say no and we find out later, you lied to the American people. That's my goal. That's my aim. I'm very adamant about it. My whole life is hanging on what the hell happened on these questions. Now, why is it that these questions will not be answered for Mrs. Smith, who lost her son in Benghazi, and also the other people that lost loved ones in Benghazi? I have another question. I'm full of questions. I'm a journalist. That's my job, to ask questions.
If you'd like to see the rest of that interview, and I know you do, head on over to Prison Planet TV and become a subscriber. You'll find the rest of that interview, as well as the Alex Jones Show, the nightly news, all of our special reports, movies, rants. Share this transmission today. Join us again here tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central for the InfoWars Nightly News. I'm Leanne McAdoo. Now you can watch the Alex Jones Show live as it happens at Infowars.com/show.
You'll find links to all of our content there and a free 15-day trial for Prison Planet TV.
More than 60 movies and documentaries all in one place at Infowars.com/show.